In 2016, geeks went wild over 5 seconds of trailer and one phrase, "Hey kid!" And really, oh my god, do you remember what it was like to see Spider-Man in that trailer? Everyone talked about those 5 seconds all week with many memes, reactions, and videos about it in 2016. Meanwhile, we're watching the movie teasers. Avengers Doomsday is the upcoming Marvel event bringing back Chris Evans, Robert Downey Jr., and the classic X-Men, aiming to restore the Marvel Cinematic Universe's former glory with a mega crossover. The problem is that the hype for this new movie doesn't seem to compare with those magical 5 seconds we saw in 2016. Many fans are excited for Avengers Doomsday, while others remain skeptical and distrustful. And there are even many people who see this movie as a desperate move by Marvel. Ultimately, Spider-Man's 5 seconds currently seem to have more media impact than the 4 new teasers. Even though Avengers Doomsday is a movie with more characters, a bigger budget, and brings back several actors in their most iconic roles after many years. But why does this happen? Why did this franchise's hype decline so much over the past decade? It's actually a more complex issue. Yes, it obviously involves the quality of recent Marvel productions. What nobody mentions is that it's also about how our brains work biologically and how shared universes function, with a philosophical factor involved. We'll discuss all of this today as we explore why Marvel movies aren't as exciting to us anymore. Let's talk first about the narrative factors, and then we'll talk about the science and philosophy. A very popular opinion right now is that the quality of Marvel Cinematic Universe productions dropped a lot after the movie Endgame. This is definitely true, and Disney Plus executives were to blame for pressuring Kevin Feige and his creative team to rush productions. Several series that don't contribute much to the universe and aren't very engaging. This caused the series and movies to be rushed, with less focus on production quality. This is noticeable in both the stories and some very expensive yet terrible looking visual effects. Not all post-Endgame stories have been bad, but overall people aren't as impressed as before. Watching an Marvel Cinematic Universe movie used to guarantee quality, though not always an artistic or sophisticated experience. You used to know that a Marvel movie promised action, laughs, and surprises, leaving you excited for the franchise's future, making the ticket worth it. But if you don't feel this way about Marvel anymore, hype for these teasers because people no longer fully trust the quality of the franchise. Another key reason for the lack of hype is that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has used the same formula for 10 years, so it doesn't achieve the same results anymore. One of the things that made the Marvel Cinematic Universe great in the first place was repeating this simple formula. Number 1, introduce several characters in individual stories. Number 2, bring them all together in one story. Do you remember how that felt? Remember how epic it was when Iron Man first met Thor or Captain America? I remember that seeing them interact together for the first time in the Avengers movie was a great experience. It really felt like watching one of those big crossovers from the comics come to life on screen. In fact, if you think about it, the Avengers movie doesn't have a great plot, but at the time it was an experience that fans absolutely loved. It wasn't the story, but how these characters interacted and solved problems together. For Age of Ultron, they did something similar but added characters only seen in a post-credits scene, creating the same impact. This is when Marvel began to consider. Crossovers expanded beyond just the Avengers movies to include films like Spider-Man, Homecoming, and Civil War, generating huge profits. And what about Infinity War and Endgame? Let's not even talk about those, because these two films were the culmination of 3 phases of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where we saw all the heroes of the universe facing off in a legendary battle against Thanos' forces. You'd think this was already the peak, that Marvel had already used all the heroes it had, but no. After that, they decided to do crossovers with heroes from other universes that we had already considered gone. And again, each of these productions sold very well. The problem is that this way of generating hype is unsustainable in the long run. Not only does the excitement of crossovers fade, but you also need more characters each time to keep people interested in these productions. Maybe that's why the new teasers for Avengers Doomsday aren't generating much hype, even though it's a movie that promises us a lot of characters from universes we haven't seen in a long time. Also, as more movies are released, it becomes harder for new fans to join the franchise. So you have 2 options. Number 1, keep the audience you already have, which they're not doing, or number 2, attract a new audience, which they're also not doing. This suggests the Marvel Cinematic Universe may soon collapse from the weight of its shared universe. That's on the narrative side, and I already have some videos where I talk more in depth about this topic. I'll leave them for you in the description. But I think another reason why these Avengers Doomsday teasers haven't worked so well has to do with the marketing they were given. I don't know about you, but to me it was nonsense. How did they handle the Avengers Doomsday teasers? In case you're not aware of this, it turns out that Disney decided to release these teasers only in some theaters before certain showings of the Avatar movie, Fire and Ash. The idea supposedly was to attract some audience to the movie theaters to help with the box office for this film. Honestly, I wouldn't go see a movie I don't want to watch just to see a trailer. There's no way to confirm how much box office this strategy brought to Avatar, but we can see its effects on Avengers Doomsday. First, descriptions of the teasers leaked, followed by audio, photos, and low-quality videos or teasers in other languages. I have two friends who said, "This teaser isn't exciting, right?" Yeah, but let's watch it anyway. I swear they were watching in German or something. Disney tried taking down pages, videos, and links, but weren't very successful. Everyone knows that once something is online, it's already there. Officially through Marvel's channels. Personally, I felt like I had already seen it a bunch of times, even though I never saw a full leak. But anyway, let's continue with the topic. It turns out that all of this also has to do with a biological issue, because our brain processes information and preferences differently depending on our age. That means there might be a biological reason why the Avengers Doomsday teasers aren't exciting us as much. Think for a moment, what are your 3 favorite movies? For me, it's Big Fish, The Godfather, and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Have you thought of yours? Now recall when you first saw each of those movies. It turns out that it's very likely you watched several of those movies when you were very young. In my case, for example, that's true. This is because our tastes are shaped in comparison to what we've seen before. This means that when we watch a movie, we decide how much we like it by mentally comparing it to the movies we've seen before. Younger people have seen fewer movies, so they're more likely to really enjoy a film since they have less to compare it to. That's why the music from our teenage years stays with us throughout our lives, and that's why it seems harder and harder each time. For a new movie to become one of our all-time favorites, surpassing those others that have been with us for many years. But that's not all. It turns out our brains tend to see the past in a more beautiful way than it actually was. This is due to a phenomenon called idyllic retrospection, a cognitive bias that affects our perception of reality, and it makes us see the past in a better light than the present. It's like people who always say everything was better in the past. Psychologists say this is a brain mechanism that boosts well-being by suppressing negative memories. When you recall your past, your brain often highlights positive memories, like those first Marvel Cinematic Universe movies that felt new and exciting. Who knows how the Avengers would be received if released today? Maybe you wouldn't view it as positively, but let me know your thoughts in the comments. All these elements together help us understand why these new teasers aren't working as well, if you notice. It's a marketing issue that does have to do with Marvel's narrative problems. It has to do with bad marketing decisions, bad executive decisions, but there's also a biological factor at play. But I think all of this can be understood very well through something the philosopher Heraclitus used to say. He used to say that no one can bathe twice in the same river because even though it seems like the same river, the water is no longer the same. And you're not the same either. Maybe the same thing is happening with Marvel. The universe can attempt to regain its old glory by bringing back familiar actors, characters, and even creating great stories like before. But even if they manage all that, who knows if they can? The water's already flowed and we're no longer the same audience. Should we accept that the river changes that excitement we used to feel in those movies from the early phases? We should do it by looking forward toward new ideas, not by looking back again. This doesn't mean we should give up on the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I'm just saying we won't find the same excitement if we keep looking in the same places. 2016 was a decade ago. In that time, we've had incredible experiences and seen movie scenes I never imagined as a kid. The lack of excitement from these latest teasers suggests we should look elsewhere, while still respecting and honoring the past as it's important to who we are. But above all, looking forward towards stories that focus less on nostalgia and more on innovation. In other words, we need to look for different waters. Dear Geekers, I wish you a very happy 2026. May it be a great year for you, and truly thank you so much for watching the videos. If you like the content, remember to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. That really helps us. Hope to see you in the next video. That's all for now. I'm Go the Geek Monitor Beyond the Obvious.